Welcome everybody to DisruptEDtv, where every little idea could make a big difference in your classroom or in your school. And Joe, today we have a terrific guest with a lot of energy, very passionate about, to say the least. His name is Don Wettrick. Don Wettrick is the founder of StartEdUp. He's also innovation coordinator at Noblesville High School in Indianapolis, Indiana. And he's a very well-known and largely followed keynote and conference speaker. You'll notice our set is a little different today. That's because we're coming to you from where Don is, and that is at the New Jersey Association of School Administrators Texpo 2018 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And that's enough about all that.
Absolutely.
Don Wettrick, you're a man on a mission. We just heard a little bit of your keynote speech. We had a chance to talk before the program.
Yes.
We're falling behind, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm frightened.
Good.
I don't think a lot of people understand what we're up against. It's kind of like the analogy of the frog in the boiling water kind of thing. When people take a look around, like when you go to the grocery store, there's more and more automated checkouts. Just the other day, Amazon just opened up their first employee-free store, right? No checkouts, everything is automated. Driverless technology. These are industries that are going to kill a lot of jobs. So if it's our job as educators to prepare our kids for the future, the things that are moving forward in the future are moving at a lot faster pace than we are. So I think the answer in education is, look, I think a lot of things we do in education are good. You know, you cannot be innovative or entrepreneurial if you don't know basic math or you know how to read. So some of the things we already do, we do a great job. But the relevancy of where we're needing to move is to start looking at innovation and entrepreneurship. We're not doing that. And that's kind of been the mission we've been on. Things that we do with StartEdUp, we take an entrepreneurial startup approach to ed, that's StartEdUp. Because if we don't do these things now, the consequences are really dire.
They're dire. Well, we wonder about that too. I mean, whenever we do a Disrupt Ed episode, we talk to somebody with ideas like you, and then we hope people out there are taking notes about them. But the question is, when are you going to use these ideas?
Yeah.
Okay, so the urgency is people need to stop right now and get started.
Yeah, this is where I think I start rubbing people either the wrong way because I start bringing up these truths that are uncomfortable. Because I keep seeing people like TED Talks that keep asking, what if? Well, we don't need what if.
We're past
we need
that.
what now.
Yeah.
And I think the disruptors that we see are not in education. And most of these people that I'm actually privileged enough to interview, they didn't like education because they learned by doing. And when they fail, they're like, I won't do that again, as opposed to, I can't fail. Because if I fail, then I won't be able to get into that famous college.
Yeah.
So,
and the only way I can guarantee not failing is by keeping doing what I've been doing all along.
And taking zero risks.
And so people need to shift from playing it safe to taking risks.
Yes.
They need to shift from the status quo
Absolutely.
to new curricula that actually create the kinds of skills people are going to need 5 years, not even 5 years from now. You're saying it's actually moving quicker than that.
It's by 2020, and this isn't just me pontificating, this is new data to come out. By 2020, half of our jobs will be freelance, the gig economy. So if that's the new reality, what are we doing in education to prepare them? Are we asking our students to start branding themselves now, start marketing themselves now? Are we asking them to find their own opportunities? Because most students wait patiently for us to assign things. And if we give them the time to say, okay, what's out there? You know, what do you think is, this is one of the things I talk about, and I talked about in the keynote today, is I'm trying to create seekers and peakers, not moaners and groaners.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because a seeker seeks opportunity. My students, when they hear people complain about things on Facebook, and they hear about how awful everything is, they see it as an opportunity.
Right.
There's like the richest people in the world solve small problems. That's it. And so when everybody else is getting on their keyboard and typing about how awful some injustice is, well then do something about it.
Yeah.
And so those people seek. Now, when innovators and entrepreneurs get together, they start forming patterns. They start seeing things coming ahead before anybody else does. So they can peek around the corner. Some of my students are making a lot of money because they know what's next. I had 2 students that were investing in Bitcoin 3 years ago.
Seriously.
Absolutely.
And these are high school students
Yes,
we're
they
talking
are.
about. Right.
And they saw from around the corner this is going to be, and matter of fact, some of them have already bailed because they're like,
I was going to say,
they're a little, well.
We have juniors and seniors dropping out of Bitcoin while the older people are just jumping in because they know something we don't.
They also see this late dip as a buying opportunity, but
Sure.
I mean, they peaked around the corner. So when you create seekers and peakers, they're against the culture of moaners and groaners, which is everybody's. And this isn't just students, by the way.
Sure.
This is most adults I know.
No.
You know, we love to complain about, all these things that are terrible in society. Well, then do something about it. Yeah. And if we train our students to freaking not just complain, but do, but no. Right now, we're like, sit down, shut up. Oh, here, memorize this test.
Memorize this test.
Because if you do good on this test, you'll go to that famous college. And if you go to this famous college, you're guaranteed a job.
Well, and if you do well on that test, then my job as a teacher is done because you did well on the test.
Which also, by the way, could we also please stop talking about just the numbers when they leave the door? Or should we not? A good CEO, what is it? You recruit well, you treat them well, and you wish them well. Because if they're growing, you know that they're going to leave. I want my students to know that when they leave, my obligation isn't done. If I'm saying, oh, okay, you passed your test, good luck, kid.
You're finished, goodbye.
Good luck, kid. I want to make sure that my students are, like, my job's kind of begun after they're gone. Okay, I trained you, how are you going to do? And if they're jobless, and if they're underemployed, I didn't do a good enough job.
Yeah, that's it's important, and it resonates with me because a lot of the people we talk to are arguing that we need to make education less transactional and more of a process that actually treats the child throughout a longer period of time. I
agree.
And one of the reasons why it's so great to have you on the program talking about this, Don, is that not only are you a speaker and an entrepreneur yourself, you have a podcast that puts you in touch with members of the business community.
Yeah.
You hear their voice.
Yeah.
You also teach high school.
Yeah.
So you're talking to students all the time.
Yeah.
So let's start with the podcast. What is business telling you that these kids need to do?
Everything that school isn't. It's almost cliche, but the whole fail fast, fail early, fail often is absolutely, like, you should try things, and if it's not working, get feedback. Deliberately try to mess up to see how it does. It doesn't matter what you think, it's what the customer base thinks. Right. Are we asking our kids to take a chance? No, because that could be a bad grade. Are we listening to our customer base? Our customer base is the taxpayers. We forget that sometimes. And so my entrepreneur friends are like, hey, it doesn't matter what you think is right, it takes some data. See what's going on. They also tell me to basically take massive risks, especially when you have limited liabilities. When you're 17 years old, you can live in your parents' home for another 5 years. So we should encourage, hey, if you're ever going to be taking some risks now, do it now. And the other thing is what we've been doing is we grow a network. Finish the rest of the sentence. It's not what you know, it's
who you know.
So why should we know people right now? Right. Yeah. Why should you have to wait till you get out of college to start building a network?
So
I want my 16-year-olds to be able to call Tim Ferriss and say, what do you think? Because, and by the way, they have an advantage. If you're 16 years old and you have a podcast or a blog that's good, well, if you're 25, you're everybody 25-year-old. If you have a 16-year-old doing it, you're like, whoa.
Well, that's impressive. That really is impressive.
So I'm wanting my high school kids to take risks now. I'm wanting more middle school kids to start doing the whole Genius Hour, 20% time thing, because that opens up their mindset to growth and entrepreneurialism. And then at the grade school level, innovation and creativity.
We're taking a break. And we're going to keep it a short break because we have to come back and talk with Don Wettrick a lot more.
Sure.
We'll be right back with more DisruptEDtv after these messages.
Stick around.
With both my sons entering college, I knew financial aid was going to help. I never thought I would qualify, too. I enrolled in Brookdale's culinary program and discovered a world of talent I never knew I had. After graduation, I landed an externship with David Burke's Fromagerie, and they hired me a month later. My name is Debbie Doran, and I came to Brookdale to learn a new skill. I never imagined it would take me this far.
Welcome back to DisruptEDtv. My name is Alcini.
I'm Joe Asamendi.
And our guest today is Don Wettrick, who, if he said it once, he said it 50 times already, and we just met him. Innovate or die.
Yeah.
And that really is literally true. And you made a point, I think, Don, just before the break, that we have a tendency to keep students in an incubator.
Yep.
You were saying, don't learn to network when you're 25 or 30.
Start now.
Learn to network with the business community at
15?
Now. 15.
13?
How do the, we have teachers and administrators
let me
watching.
break this down so this isn't so pie in the sky. First of all, let's just dispel the myth that social media is dangerous. It can be. A car is dangerous. A car is really dangerous. We train kids how to use a car so they can use it. So social media is the same thing. you can train them how to treat themselves like a professional online. So you are not going to catch my kids on Twitter or on LinkedIn duck face selfing and saying F this and F that.
Sure.
They treat it like a business tool. So let's just start there. But secondly, like if they're at an automatic advantage. It's unfair how much advantage they have. Because if the average 16-year-old is flipping off the camera and doing dumb stuff, and then my 16-year-old is like, hey, you might want to check out my blog or my podcast or my YouTube channel of things that I'm doing. Then all of a sudden, those people that are already entrepreneurial, they see themselves in that kid.
That's interesting.
We've had so many entrepreneurs go, oh my gosh, I was you at that age. And so they can just ask, hey, I would love to, and by the way, never use the term pick your brain. But I say, they'll reach out and they'll say, hey, I think that what you do is amazing. I'd like to learn more from you. I'm a 15-year-old that wants to be successful and just like you.
Yeah,
now, how would that make you feel?
Pretty good.
So some of these people, and they don't have to be the Jack Ma's or the Mark Cubans of the world. They can be a really successful entrepreneur in your town.
Well,
So all of a sudden you get that and you're like, and work for free. Go out there and it's like, hey, I love what you do. Can I go and job shadow you for a day? What? I don't know. We don't have, that's how I got my first job, by the way.
That's how a lot of us got started.
And so if they start networking like that, they have an advantage because they're 16.
Sure.
And every other 16 is not doing this.
Is not doing that.
Right. So all of a sudden they're building that network. If they have a good blog and they know how to differentiate and make it look better or do things other than just the common blogs, this is a good tool. So I love LinkedIn, but I also encourage my students to either have a podcast, a blog, or a YouTube channel. Because again, if you're doing great work and only mom and dad know about it, I mean, it's the tree falling in the forest.
That's not
Sure.
good enough.
Right.
So let me unpack this a little bit. We can whine all we want about social media. It's not going away.
No.
So we have to teach our kids how to use it effectively. And I think what you offered was a great piece of advice. Certainly you're going to network with your friends. There's no question about that. But why not network with members of the local business community as well?
Yes.
Why wouldn't you send the local CEO of a small company a friend request? And you encourage your students to do that.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, some of our biggest wins, the reason why we got a hold of Tim Ferriss is because, we had tried to get to him and we didn't get a response. And so finally, 3 of my girls were like, I've got it. And they're like, Wettrick, take a picture of us. And they went,
Oh, geez.
and I'm like, why'd I do that? She's like, send it to Tim Ferriss and say, we're so disappointed that you're not getting back with us.
Why aren't you accepting our friend request? Why aren't you?
Tim was like, okay, I give up.
No kidding.
He's like, all right, he's like, you got me. Because I'd sent other like, hey, we'd like to talk to you in class and all this other stuff. Instead, we send it, that was their idea.
That's that's marketing.
Right.
If you think about it, they're learning how to sell.
Absolutely.
Literally, every school can do that.
Social media is
It's
free.
simple, it's so easy.
It's just a matter of
What do most schools do? Block it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
they
even,
block
okay, look, I understand the whole, I don't like Snapchat, for the record, so I understand some bad things can happen. So could we all just agree that YouTube and LinkedIn are okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So LinkedIn are some, my destination is normally the entrepreneurial field and authors. They're on LinkedIn as well. Matter of fact, if you get students on LinkedIn, people on LinkedIn community are like, oh my gosh, you see this 15-year-old kid
There's
who's
a
running his own
15-year-old on
business?
LinkedIn. I mean, seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're scared of Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat, okay, fine. Could you please unblock LinkedIn, please? Anyway.
No, I think that's important. I think, that's certainly one piece of advice. Now, on your podcast, you talk to members of the business community, how they resonate with your message.
It supports everything I want to do.
They see this problem
Oh
too.
my gosh, yeah. Well, and they're also kind of a little bit perturbed because some of these people are hiring, and I mean, there's some videos going out right now that are kind of funny of somebody trying to hire a millennial, and they're like, well, those aren't my hours, and I don't do that, and Siri does everything for me. Essentially, they're upset because we're producing a product that's not innovative.
That's not working.
Like, hey, we need some new ideas. Our competition's starting to catch up. What should we do? What do you want me to do? I'll write you a good essay.
Yeah.
No. We need some fresh, creative ideas. Where do you think this market is going? I don't know. I've never thought for myself before.
I've never thought for myself.
So,
How willing, in your experience working with members of the business community, how willing are they to work with schools?
extremely.
But they're not invited in. That's
Because
the problem.
they're not, we have made it hard for them. Right? There's so many, and I get it, we should have safe schools and all that stuff, but they don't feel welcomed. Now, they get hit up a lot for donations every year. Hey, would you sponsor our blah, 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 and this and that. But they've never, not say never, they've very seldomly been asked to bring their mindset into the school building. Hey, how did you start your business? What are some of the pain points you went through? What did you have to go through? Because you come in, and not a career day, but being able to mentor some of the kids. They would love to come into the building if they're invited. So invite them.
So invite them, that's it. And really, it's for the lack of that invitation is keeping them out.
And who embodies learning more than entrepreneurs?
Well, pretty much that's
They
everybody.
don't follow orders. They make up things as they go along. They fail and they adapt or die.
Okay.
And
great.
if we have that mindset, then that's our kids need that.
Now, okay,
Simple.
now, at the high school where you teach,
Yeah.
what do the other faculty members feel about all this noise you make?
I don't know. I mean,
How do you get through to, I think what I'm asking is how do you get through to faculty? How do you make that connection?
So I need to do, it's tough. I'm supported, but like, it's a hard thing when your podcast is kind of ripping into education and you still work with other educators. And and again, I always have to say that, a disclaimer, I think that what we need is to still, this isn't replacing, this is enhancing.
Sure.
You can't be innovative and entrepreneurial unless you have a good math base, if you understand where we've been in history and where we're going. You have to read and write. Communication skills are at an all-time high. So I still believe in a lot of what we do in the current education system. So I do think there's a misnomer that I'm anti-education. I am not.
Okay.
I'm wanting us to be a enhancer. So unfortunately, I think that some teachers find that I might be too much of a pain in the butt.
Do you find newer teachers, however, are more receptive than maybe people who've been teaching for a long
I
time?
don't really think it's an age thing.
Oh, you don't?
I mean,
Okay.
I've met a lot of 40 and somethings that are like, oh my gosh. Matter of fact, I met some today that are just great. Matter of fact, my favorite quote, and I know we're closing in on the segment end, so I'll end with this.
Okay.
When I went into education, I used to work for a think tank in Indianapolis right out of college. My parents paid for all of my education. My dad was a teacher. My sister was a teacher. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, which makes her a teacher. And the last thing I thought I'm going to do is be a teacher. But we all have this genetic thing. I don't know what it is. So I came to my dad and I said, I'm not asking for money, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my teaching degree. And this to me is innovation. He said, son, I do not care if you teach for the next 20 years. Promise me you won't teach 1 year 20 times.
Oh, that's a great
That's
quote.
a great quote.
That's a terrific quote.
And that has stuck with me. To me, that is innovation. What works, enhance it. What doesn't, end it.
End it, move on. We're gonna take a break on that note, and when we come back, we're gonna talk a little bit more about how teachers can change their mindsets maybe to address these challenges. It's the asteroid, you don't want to be a dinosaur. I
Right.
mean, that's pretty
Yeah,
much it.
that's
So
it.
we'll be right back after these messages with more DisruptEDtv. Terrific. Welcome back to a very special episode of DisruptEDtv from Atlantic City, New Jersey, with a great guest. My name is Al Cini,
I'm still Joe Osamendi.
but our guest today is Don Wettrick, and I'm thinking during the break, if the world of education were a big washing machine on a spin cycle, Don Wettrick would be the bowling ball in it.
The agitator.
And
Yeah,
I mean, what we're really doing here is making a lot of noise. And I know we talked about this during the break. We bemoaned the problems that educators face in dealing with this tidal wave of change.
Right.
And their natural resistance to sort of address that. At the same time, every teacher out there who watches DisruptEDtv is dedicated to the craft.
Yeah.
They care about their students.
Yes.
So really, let's see if we can't build it back up and talk
Yeah.
about how this is possible.
Right.
It's not impossible.
Well, let me first off by saying this is one of the reasons why I like DisruptEDtv, because one, I've been watching and I like the fact that you guys are wanting to be disruptors, and two, that you make a great point. There's a lot of people that do want to change. So I had a really great conversation with Gary Vee, and you may not know who he is, but he's a passionate guy, and he says it makes him upset because there is a lot of what ifs, and maybe in 5 years. So I want to push on this sense of urgency. So here's the problem. A lot of times you'll have a couple scenarios. You'll have the rock star superintendent or principal that is dealing with maybe faculty that's like, nah. Or you've got some faculty that's like, let's go, but you have some superintendents and principals that are like, nah. Try to work within either system you have. Be that, Seth Godin linchpin mentality that, like, I think a lot of things that we're talking about today are found in the Genius Hour 20% time movement.
Right.
So this is a movement. Now, I believe that there is a better method, and shameless promotion. This is what StartEdUp does. We do a lot of faculty training on 20% time and stuff like that at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. But this kind of like allowing kids time, 20 minutes on a Friday, to, hey, what would you guys do if I gave you this time? Build a Minecraft village, have competitions, invent your own projects or products, or go and help service-based things. This will allow the students to go, maybe part of the school week should be what I'm interested in. That plants a seed that school is a place where you have to learn important things, and the place where you want to learn important things to them.
Well,
and there's a multitude of things that they want to learn. You have that in the elementary setting. So now middle school teachers are saying, well, I don't have time. When am I going to fit this in? I have to teach the standards. You do. There's pressures on us. I'm a teacher as well. I'm not a edu celebrity. I teach.
Right.
So that case, I tell middle schoolers, are you teamed? A lot of middle schoolers are teamed. So I said, could you do this once a month? So this week, the science teacher dedicates 30 minutes of innovation time. That's it. Next week, the English teacher. Next week, the social studies teacher. You can share this. And again, that team mentality is we think that innovation and open source learning is important, and we're going to value it, and we're always going to give you time in the week without sacrificing too much time of your class day.
Wow.
And then at high school, and this is where I'm very passionate about, the Genius Hour movement has been great, but I do not like it at the high school level. It has to be its own time. I am working with any state that will listen to me that it needs to be its own elective. It needs to be called innovation and open source learning. We have a system, we have a methodology that's about 7 weeks long, but then the rest of the year should be open source for all the reasons we talk about. I teach my students how to reframe, how to collect and connect, how to be innovative. That takes about 7 weeks. The rest of the year, they build their network. So if a kid says, I really want to build an app, how much do I know about app building? I don't. But if we open source our learning and we start building networks, I mean, and by the way,
going to find somebody.
You're going to find a lot of people.
We're going to find somebody.
And heck, a lot of these entrepreneurs are excited because they're grooming their next employee.
Yeah.
They're like, your kid can code at 16 years old. Can I hire him?
You know what I like about this is it's a great conversation. It dovetails with what a lot of companies are doing, which is allowing their employees to take a day a month to work on their own independently. So if you take independent work that a student wants to do and marry it with the independent day that somebody in one of those businesses has available, you've just created a mentorship program.
That's a win-win for everybody.
I think that, and if you don't get out of your little kind of incubator, you're never going to learn about these opportunities.
This is where I'm so proud of Noblesville High School. So I'm a teacher, it's a suburb of Indianapolis, and even we have an internship program that it's not my innovation kids, it's for the kids that aren't necessarily taking my class, but they're like, hey, I want to know what it's like to be in healthcare. So they go and serve.
Let's go find out.
And by the way, if it doesn't work out, they'll adjust at semester's end. How many people drop their major in college?
Plenty.
Most.
Let's face it.
Because they start actually doing, and then they find out, so let's have our kids discover what they don't love as well. So mentorships are great, innovation classes are great. These are the new things of the future that we can have as an electives in high school.
Okay, while we still have a little bit of time left in this last segment for this episode, and there's so much to talk about here, you got a teacher out there who's saying, I've got all these great ideas, but my administration won't let me do them. What do you say to that teacher?
I'm going to look in this camera right here and say, I will help. I'm convincing. Let me talk to your superintendent.
Really?
Let me talk to your, no, this is partly what I do.
That's terrific.
Let me talk to your principal. Or better yet, and this is shameless plug, please listen to my podcast.
Well, I think
Listen to some people that are multi-millionaires, billionaires saying this is what it takes to be successful. Start picking up on these patterns.
And if that's what your school is about doing, then you've got to pick up some of that. You have to learn those patterns.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I have another question for you then. What do you say to a school administrator who says, these teachers have all these crazy ideas, but I'm trying to run a school here?
Yeah. This is the hard part of the hard part, because we're all pandering to the university systems. Everything we do is a funnel for them.
That's such a great point.
Right.
Talk some more about
Well,
that.
I mean, great. So like I said it in today's keynote, we can't have it both ways. If you talk to parents, they'll agree, you shouldn't teach the test. Teaching to the test is bad. That's not future ready. That's not this and that. So when schools say we're going to stop doing that, by definition, scores are going to go down a little bit. And when people freak out because all of a sudden your school isn't good anymore, wait a second, you just said that the test isn't as important. Yeah. We can't have it both ways.
You can't have it both ways.
So if you want to have innovative kids, by definition, some of their standardized test scores, if you said it's not important, they're not going to take it as seriously.
Well, I want to bring another statement stakeholder into this, but what you're saying essentially to me is that compliance and innovation are necessarily tense adversaries.
Yes, yes.
But you need to mix
there's-
the two.
Right, and there's reasons why, but I think it's time that we start taking a more relaxed approach of not everybody should be forced to believe that they should go to a four-year college. There's a lot of things in the tech areas, there's a lot of things in the
Other ways
industrial
to
areas.
go.
Right, and I think that the lawmakers will start taking a look at things of the future and then say this whole sit down, shut up, compliance-based education isn't
It just
good
doesn't
for
work.
everybody.
Okay, so this gets us back to something you said to us just before the program, and the last stakeholder that I wanted to kind of bring into this conversation, parents.
Yes.
What are parents telling you?
They're also scared, and I think this is one of the reasons why we're evangelizing right now is
Really?
that we still have some parents that believe, well, they're not looking at the data.
Mm-hmm.
So we still have some parents believe that just get straight A's, and then when you go to college, all your problems will go away.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have we're not allowed to talk about it. Like, remember in the 90s, we weren't allowed to talk about the housing crisis? So nothing's going to go down.
Right.
It's not going to pop. The dot-com bubble, don't talk about it. It's not going to pop.
Right.
We have a college debt crisis that no one's talking about.
Wow.
We have kids that cannot get out of debt because it's against the law,
Right.
and they are underemployed, and they are depressed because they went and did it the right way, and they left. Now they're holding the pile of money, debt that they have, without a lot of prospects because we pushed them to areas that don't exist anymore.
So you're getting
So
a
I'm
sense
telling
of-
parents
Yeah.
right now, start looking at if your child wants to go in engineering, good, gotta go. Want to be in medicine, gotta go. There's a lot of things that if they want to be entrepreneurial, you don't need to start off with $100,000 of debt.
Wow.
You can start being mentored now. You can start building your network now at age 16 and not start at 24 minus the $150,000.
It's about preparing for life that we
Absolutely.
know, the future life and a future
100%.
society that is coming.
Yep.
Not about preparing to go to 13th grade.
Absolutely.
Which is really what we're doing. That's
Right.
such an important point, and it's a great point to end on. Don the Baptist.
Thanks.
Don Wettrick.
Thank you so much, Don. It's a
Sure.
pleasure
Terrific
meeting you.
talking to you on DisruptEDtv, and here's your opportunity to talk into the
Sure.
camera.
Yeah, you guys can find me. I'm most active on Twitter at Don Wettrick. That's DonWettrick. Maybe you have something right there. Also, StartEdUpinnovation.com is our website. We're launching an academy here in February. The podcast, also called StartEdUp, can be found on Stitcher, iTunes, Podcast Addict, or wherever you find your podcasts.
Wherever favorite podcasts are
Oh, and
found.
then our Facebook channel, facebook.com/StartEdUp. We do videos from the classroom, which, by the way, I love. It's our social proof. A lot of people are like, oh, you're not really doing these things with kids. I'm underselling it. Go watch some videos with our kids in it.
I think that's great. That's a great way to end the program, Don. Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much for being with us.
Thank you, Don. Really great
Thank all
message.
of you for joining us. What a great program.
Yeah.
Thank all of you for joining us today on a very high energy DisruptEDtv. My name is Alcini,
I'm Joe Osmendi.
and we hope you'll join us again for a future episode.
Thanks again, Don.